Alrighty, what's up, folks? This is the recording for Wednesday's lecture on August 26th, 2020. So what we did in class today is I went over a few things, important things about Schoology here for week one, and then we did some practice over equipment and safety. All right, so I just want to make sure that everyone is in a good position for Thursday and Friday coming up in this week. So if I go to my week one folder here, okay? So Monday and Tuesday, you guys should have already watched those lectures at this point. This Wednesday folder is how you got the class today. Now let's talk about what's in the Thursday folder. So tomorrow, when this folder becomes visible to you, this will be the first folder where I think the green check mark system should actually be working. So there's been issues with the Monday and Tuesday check marks. If you have any issues with those, don't worry about them unless you can't open a folder for some reason, then come talk to me. But Thursday is the first folder where you really do need to get that green check mark, I believe. I think the system should be working in. So let me show you exactly how you're going to get your green check mark. You're coming in here. You first are going to open up the lab folder. So here is a lab handout that I normally give in class for the golden penny, okay? And so this is the handout, gives you a little background. You do not have to print this off if you don't want to, but here's what I recommend, that you either print this or you get a separate sheet of notebook paper, you write down 1 through 7, and you write down and take notes on the things that I talk about as I go over the post-lab questions. These post-lab questions really help people understand what exactly we did in that lab. And so you want to make sure that you understand what's talked about there and that you get what that lab was all about. So here's the lab handout. Down here you will find the Gold Penny Lab video. So if you just click on this, it'll open up like that. Now you have to open up this video, and that's the only way you can get a green check mark here. Okay, so once you open up that video, you'll get a green check mark there. So you have a green check mark here next to, or right underneath the lab. And then the other thing you have to do, this is super important, this is key, is you have to fill out the week 1 participation points quiz. This is for 10 points, so this is the highest grade that you've gotten so far. So if you attended Wednesday's live class, you come here and you just type, you would open up the quiz, you would select option A, and then just make sure you hit submit, and you're going to get your 10 points. If you are watching this recording at this point, and that means you need to come to Thursday office hours. So if you weren't in live class on Wednesday, August 26th, that means that you need to come to office hours on Thursday. I need to get with you on a Google Meets meeting every week, okay? But once you do those office hours, you'll go ahead and you can select B, and that's how you get your 10 points. Now, a word of warning. You could just theoretically come in here, select A or B, get your 10 points automatically without coming to class either day. But here's the thing. I keep track of everyone who comes to office hours and everyone who came to class today. I use popsicle sticks to do that. And so if I see that Billy Johnson has a 10 out of 10 for participation, but Billy Johnson isn't on my notes for Wednesday or Thursday's attendance, then Billy Johnson, he might have a 10 out of 10 in Schoology for a minute, but then it's going to turn to a 0, and then it's going to turn into an email to his parents. So you don't want that to happen. But anyways, if you hit submit on this quiz here, okay, what's going to happen is you'll have a check mark in the lab section, because you already did that. You'll have a check mark here. So anywhere that you have a gray check mark, you need to make that green. And when both of those are checked, then boom, you should have a green check mark next to Thursday, okay? So to guarantee that your Friday folder will appear and you'll be able to open it midnight up Friday, you need to have a green check mark right here, and then you should be in business. Okay, now let's talk about Friday. Friday's quiz, you just open on this, you'll open it up right here. It's 14 total questions worth 28 points. And let's talk a little bit about what's going to be on that quiz. So that quiz is going to cover 3 things. Equipment. So you need, if I show you a picture of something, you need to tell me what it is and what it does, okay? We're going to go over safety things, so various things from the safety video. And we're going to talk about the Gold Penny Lab, okay? So if you're watching this right now, you haven't done the Gold Penny Lab yet. So just know there's a couple of questions about the Gold Penny Lab. They're not super tricky by any means, but you just need to make sure you understood what happened in that lab, and then you should be fine, okay? And the Friday quiz is due at 1:30. It opens up early in the morning on Friday. I can't remember exactly what time, like 6 or 7 a.m. maybe, but it does close at 1:30 p.m. This means that if you open that quiz at 1:25 p.m., you only have 5 minutes to fill out every question and hit submit. If you don't hit submit before 1:30, the question just goes, or the quiz goes blank, you get an automatic 0, okay? So you need to make sure you log in. I would log in no later than 1 o'clock into that quiz to make sure you have at least a half hour. I think lots of you will finish the quiz in less than a half hour, but to be safe and just make time not a factor, get on there on that quiz by 1 o'clock the latest and just make sure that you are fine. You can take a long time taking a quiz if you want. I think there is a time limit of maybe like an hour and a half or 2 hours. That's way more time than you need, but the point is get it submitted. Make sure you hit submit at the end by 1:30. Okay, so now the next thing we did in class is we went over a bunch of, I quiz people with my smartboard here. So I'm gonna ask a bunch of questions in a row. So I'm gonna go pretty quickly because I'm recording by myself in my room, but you are gonna wanna watch this video and pause it a bunch of times to make sure you know the answers to the question yourself, okay? So every time I ask a question, click pause real quick and make sure you know the answer, or like look it up in your notes or whatever, and then hit play again. So you want to have your finger by the pause button. Okay, so my first question today in class was, hey, so what's wrong with this lab picture? The answer is, this guy has his goggles on his forehead and they're not protecting his eyes anymore. What's wrong with this lab picture? This girl has her hair, her long hair, if she leans forward, that would fall forward. It's down. It needs to be tied back, otherwise it may dip into chemicals or a fire, or a Bunsen burner, I should say, and catch on fire. What's wrong with Barbie and her chemistry skills? She is not wearing goggles. She looks like she's about to drink out of this test tube, which is not good. And not to mention, test tubes should not be pointed towards you ever. Things tend to kind of fly out of here, so be careful. Don't ever point a test tube toward yourself. What are these and what do they do? These are beaker tongs and they are used to move beakers. What is this and what does it do? Notice I have a little flame here I try to draw. This is a Bunsen burner and it heats reactions. Don't say Bunsen burner burns things. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's just heating things. What is this and what does it do? This is an Erlenmeyer flask, and it's used for mixing only. And some people might say, Mr. P, well, what the heck? Why does it have numbers on it then if you're not supposed to measure stuff with it? That's a good question. Those are only there to give you an idea of how much the flask can hold so you don't accidentally overflow it. So if you want to mix about 500 milliliters of something, you look at this label, it says, oh, this is a 250 ml. Ooh, I actually need, this is going to overflow, so I need a different container if I want to do that. So that's all they're there for. Mixing, not measuring. Watch out. This is a funnel. Notice how this one has a small mouth, so this one's used to transfer liquids. This larger mouth funnel is used to transfer solids. So funnels transfer materials, and depending on the size of the mouth, it can transfer a liquid or a solid. These are goggles, and they protect your eyes from chemicals. And these ones would create a nice seal around your face that can protect it from fumes also. What is this and what does it do? This is a pair of crucible tongs, and they move crucibles, especially hot ones. So remember, this is a crucible right here, okay? Not to be confused with a beaker and the beaker tongs that move beakers. Beaker tongs have rubber on the ends. These are all metal. This is a pipette. Pipettes are for adding just a teeny bit of liquid volume. So let's say you're really close to having the exact amount you need, but you need a little bit more. You don't want to pour too much in with a beaker, let's say. So you can squeeze the end of the pipette, draw a little bit of liquid in it, and then you can go drop-wise into a container to get the exact amount that you need. Okay? What is this and what does it do? This is a glass stirring rod and plot twist. It's used to stir things. What is this and what does it do? This is a test tube. Test tubes are good for holding small amounts of reactive substances, okay? So they're pretty small. They're a lot smaller than a beaker. So you can hold reactions. Their use is they can hold reactions, but just small amounts, small amounts. This is a graduated cylinder. This is a graduated cylinder, and it's used to measure liquid volume. So this is a good measuring tool. So unlike the Erlenmeyer flask earlier, which is only good for mixing, this is good for measuring liquid volume, a graduated cylinder. This is a wire mesh. So, or you could say wire gauze. So what happens is, if you kind of look at my setup next to me, so wire gauze, its purpose is it supports even heating. Supports even heating. So they can kind of act like a shelf to hold a beaker in place. And if you have a Bunsen burner underneath it here, when you turn the flame on, okay, the flame will hit the wire gauze. And because the wire gauze is a conductive metal, it will spread that heat evenly. So to give you a little picture, if the tip of the flame is hitting here, so this gets hot at first, but then that heat moves its way out to the edges. And so this whole thing will get hot, and it'll produce nice even heat along the bottom of the beaker instead of just a tiny little point. So these edges themselves will even get hot way out here. So you have to be careful. You don't even want to touch this edge when you're doing this in lab. This is a beaker. Beakers are good for holding reactions, okay? And again, the numbers, this big number here tells you this is a 400 milliliter beaker, so that way you don't overflow it. That's the only reason their numbers are on there. Beakers do not measure well. They do hold reactions well. What is this? This is a thermometer. It's a digital one. And the units on this should always be degrees Celsius. You're used to Fahrenheit, so when someone says it's 90 degrees outside, they mean it's 90 degrees Fahrenheit outside. But we use Celsius only in my class. This is a GIF of heat shock. So that's when you have really hot glass and then you try and cool it down too quickly with cold water. It will shatter just like this. So be careful. If you have a really hot piece of glassware, you leave it on the countertop so it can cool down more slowly. And then that's how you proceed. If you try and cool it down with cold water, it will shatter. It's a heat shock, shattering. This guy right here, what is he doing? Well, he is wafting. The 3 steps of wafting are hold something 12 inches away from you, close your eyes, and then waft. What he's doing with his hand, that's the act of wafting. We talked about a few other things, so remember that how to dispose of things properly in class. So if you have broken glassware, that gets disposed of by me personally, never you, into the broken glassware bucket. Even if it has chemicals on it, broken glass always goes in a broken glassware bucket. Solid waste usually goes in the trash unless I tell you otherwise. Liquid waste usually goes in the sink unless I tell you otherwise. In the safety video, you saw me, or you saw Ms. Bay, rather, pour some liquid waste into the fume hood. You should know about burns. So you should know that there are 2 types of burn, chemical and thermal. In either case, if you get a burn, you need to rinse with lots and lots of cold water. And signs that you have a burn are that the skin or infected area, whatever, becomes red and itchy. And lastly, a burn is equal to cell death, so don't forget about that. And anything else we covered today? Let's see here. Oh, not too much. Checking those notes. Yeah, make sure you know your equipment, make sure you know your safety, and make sure you know that Gold Penny Lab. There will be a couple questions on that quiz on Friday at the Gold Penny Lab.